Hey guys, welcome back to Welcome Home Custom. Today we are going to learn how to assemble our Canadian Goose. Let's get started. All right, jumping right into the files. So when you first open the files, you will see that there are 5 different format options. You only need to download the one that you are going to use. So in this case, we will review the SVGs. We have a number of different things within the folder. First and foremost, always review your instructions. It's going to have a layout of the different colors used in the file, a note on scoring and how to set it up because it's not an engrave. It will run through the materials used and needed for the project. Please note that there is an optional layer that you could be doing with this Showstopper, and it is all noted within the instructions. There is also an example of the different files and explaining what the different files are used for, and then a very quick down and dirty around how to assemble. We also have a color planner. This can be used either to plan out different colors that you may want to use, or if you're unable to cut the backer because you have a smaller laser, you can always use this as your reference for placing all of the pieces. Let's go ahead and review shared line and separated master. First with the shared line. Shared line is created for someone that wants to do a quick, fast cut. I would probably just ignore the numbers completely, and they are set up to be scored if you want to score them. But you can cut out the design and paint it. If you don't want to worry about kerf or anything like that, you can do this option. This is for someone that has a larger laser. Please note that the pieces will not fit tight if you do it this way. But the shared line is exactly what this says. So each one of these lines basically is its own entity. They aren't going to be shapes. This way you can just do a single line cut throughout the whole thing. A lot of people will use this as a backer. So you could change your perimeter line to be a different color. You could score everything on the inside and then cut the outside line. The separated master, which let me go ahead and open that real quick. Separated master is used for people that want to resize it in an odd shape. So if we were to select the whole thing and let's say we wanted to make it just a little bit wider to fit in a specific sized frame, or it needs to be a little taller, you can do that. And then you're going to want to grab all these pieces, sort them out, rotate them, do whatever you want to do, and then add your own kerf. So this is definitely a more advanced option, but the option is there if you need it. Let's jump on over to the cut by color files. So the cut by color files, we have no kerf and we have kerf. For no kerf, there is no offset added to these pieces whatsoever. You could use these to resize if you are locking your aspect ratio. So as an example, I know that the finished size of this design is going to be 18 by 24 inches. Whoops. Unlock it. Sorry, 24 by 18 inches. I always do that. Now what we're going to want to do is select everything. And let's say we wanted to make it 36 inches instead in width. We would type in 36 here with our aspect ratio locked. And we would repeat the same process with every single file. And in theory, you can add your own offset and it will go together as a 36 by 27 inch Showstopper. If we go to the kerf files, these are going to be the easiest files to use. There is a 0.002 inch offset already added to every single piece so that you can really just load the file and go. Please note, if there is a number on the piece itself, the entire file needs to be cut with the good side face down in your laser, and then the number is scored on the back of the pieces. The other thing I'll note is in the instructions, I do mention that I pulled a few of the pieces out of these files to create a varying depth. So in the sky, which number 1 is one of them, I cut with 1/8. If you wish to do this, just refer to the instructions and I call out what numbers and what board those pieces are on. There is also an optional file if you wanted to raise up the goose itself. You can cut these pieces out of a 1/8 Baltic birch or any other scrap wood that you have and use it to raise the goose up and create a dimensional layer. So that is the files in a quick overview. Let's go ahead and jump into assembly. Okay, I have already cut all of my pieces. At this point, you're going to want to grab out your color planner if you've not already. The other thing I suggest doing is organizing all of your pieces by number. So 1 through 10, 11 through 20, 21 through 30, and etc. That will make placing pieces a lot easier. So as I mentioned earlier, I am making the background pieces thinner with a 1/8 inch piece. The mountains and the sky are all 1/8 in this example. Now, again, this is just an example. You could cut this all out of the same material, the same thickness, and then use the tape, flip, and glue method. That is totally fine and will look great as well. But I just wanted to show you guys a different option on what we could do with the Showstopper. Another option I showed was using wenge wood, which is what the birds are made out of, along with the main goose's head and feet. You do not have to use this type of wood. You could stain some oak black and that would also look great. And we'll go ahead and continue to just place pieces where they're supposed to go. Again, you can refer to your color planner. You do not need to have a scored backer. The next thing I will note is that if you are doing the optional layer, you are going to want to place those pieces down at this time as well. I'm using a 1/8 inch Baltic birch. You are going to want to make sure that it is at the same height or lower than your 1/8 inch mountains and sky. Because if your mountains and sky are shorter than the Baltic birch, then you will be able to see that layer after it's been assembled. I also know some of you are probably wondering, Robin, why did you cut all of the pieces just to have to put them in the back? If we didn't do this, kerf may not have worked properly. And so I applied the kerf to those pieces as well, just to ensure that when we do the overlay, it will be the exact same size. Now we want to go ahead and get the rest of the pieces in place so that we can start the gluing process. Now again, because I'm using different layers, this is going to be slightly different in the way I normally would glue. Typically, I would just tape, flip, and glue my pieces, but because I'm doing the varying heights and I want to make sure that nothing buckles while I'm gluing things down, I go ahead and use a slightly different method. Now, I did decide to shape just the goose only, and I have been using two different bits that I really like. I have this one that I have on the Marathon tool right now, and it's got a kind of a concave shape in the center, and I use in two grits. I use a more heavy duty grit, and then I go back over it with a fine grit. I also use a bit that has more of a needle shape, and this I use to get into the areas that are a little bit tighter and that I can't get into with the other concave bit. Again, I'll use a more extreme grit and then work down to a lightweight grit. Once I've rounded all of my pieces to my liking, I go ahead and dry fit it onto the backer just to make sure all the pieces fit and work, and then I remove them again. I know it seems like a little bit of extra work, but it is pretty smart to go ahead and do that just to make sure you've got all the pieces accounted for and that they do all fit. So this glue up process is a little bit more tedious. We are going to add glue to each and every piece, leaving all of the other pieces still intact in the backer. That way we make sure that nothing shifts and that the pieces will fit back where they're supposed to go. Next, I'm going to add some Starbond to the perimeter of the piece. And what this does is holds the piece down flat while the Titebond is still curing. This allows us to get away with not having to weigh it down, use sandbags or clamps. You will want to apply a little bit of pressure to the piece while it is setting up. Starbond usually takes about 10 or 15 seconds to set up if you are using it with the spray accelerator. So we will go through and glue every single piece in this process, including the Baltic birch of the first layer of the goose. Once everything is dry on the backer or the first layer, I can go ahead and add the goose layer, just working through once again, piece at a time, adding the glue and pressing it down. The last thing I want to do is give it a good clean sand, and then we will spray with a lacquer or a varnish. All right, guys, that's it. Hopefully you found this tutorial helpful. Make sure to subscribe and check out all my other tutorials just like this. Thanks so much.